What's going on, guys? Antonio here. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up for me, and let's get into it. All right, so I decided to do a deep dive on Citadel, which is streaming on Amazon Prime. I checked it out. Was it Richard Madden, formerly of Game of Thrones? And was he? Well, obviously he was in the Eternals as well, which didn't like Eternals, but it wasn't because of Richard Madden. It just that movie just didn't do it for me. But Richard Madden's fine. I'm trying to remember. There's a show on Netflix. I can't remember. He's playing a bodyguard, a British bodyguard protecting like some member of parliament and everything. That show's really good on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it, but he's really good in that. I really enjoyed him in that, and obviously I enjoyed him on Game of Thrones. There's a lot of good, and like I said, he was actually good in Eternals. I just didn't think the movie was good. When I saw he was on this, I was really interested. Priyanka Chopra Jonas, she put the Jonas on there. She is married to Nick Jonas. Which is kind of funny because Joe Jonas is married to Sophie Turner, who played Richard Madden's sister on Game of Thrones. So that's kind of a weird coincidence there. But Priyanka Jonas or Priyanka Chopra Jonas is playing his love interest and the female lead on this. It is produced, or the show promotes itself as being produced by Joe and Anthony Russo. And yes, they are definitely involved. I know Joe Russo directed the episodes, Anthony Russo, they were behind the scenes running a lot of stuff. But like when you watch the opening credits, there's like 50 producers listed, and then at the end it says Joe and Anthony Russo. So it's like, it seems like they have way too many people producing this. But the big names are, of course, Joe and Anthony Russo, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame. Matter of fact, there's a movie on Netflix, The Gray Man, that I really enjoyed. Some people didn't like Gray Man, but I thought Gray Man was actually pretty good. But I enjoy Joe and Anthony Russo's work. But I watched. They only have 6 episodes. Apparently, this show cost over $300 million, and it only had 6 episodes. So I'm like, I don't know if I saw $300 million on that screen. They definitely had to do a lot of international filming. So I understand that, okay, we're filming in this country, or whatever. You could do kind of like what a lot of modern television shows do, and they say, hey, I'm in France, and really they're in like Canada somewhere shooting. You know what I'm saying? You just kind of fake it and make it look like, or you're on a remote tropical island and really they're in like Maui somewhere or something. You know, that kind of deal. But it looked like, when they say they're like in France, they're really in France or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand if they're actually going to be traveling internationally, that makes the budget just skyrocket on this. But I don't see at six episodes, $300 million. That's $50 million an episode. I don't know if I see that, but it definitely had a lot of great stunts. That being said, let's kind of dive into the plot. If I'm being honest, the show reminds me, there was what was it? I think it was 2008. There was a show with Christian Slater on it called My Own Worst Enemy. It only aired 9 episodes and they canceled it. And I love that show. It was a great show. It was a forerunner to shows like Chuck. The basic premise of My Own Worst Enemy is very similar to Citadel if you've seen it. Basically, you see a guy, he's got a wife and a family. He's kind of, a boring, mundane job. He's just kind of chilling. And then every now and again, he has these like flashbacks to something and he doesn't know what's going on and the whole thing. It's the same thing that happened in My Own Worst Enemy. And just like on that show, Christian Slater's character finds out that he was a spy. And, and that the spy agency that he worked, he was like a deep sleeper agent. And they have to use some kind of process. Like when he's ready to go on a mission, they bring all the spy stuff out of him. So he's like, boom, they bring him out. And then all of a sudden he can do kung fu and do all this different stuff. And he can do like computer technology and all that. And it's Citadel's the same way. So Richard Madden's character, he's got his wife and he's got a daughter. And he's just he just looks like a regular guy. He's just living a regular life. And then you find out that this guy shows up and tells him he was a spy. And he's got some kind of chip in his head. And they have to inject this thing in you and make you remember. But for whatever reason, his isn't working. They can't get his to work where they can bring the memories back to him. And he's got some deep, important information that is vital to international security. Like people are about to do stuff, and he's the only, it's that kind of thing. He's been asleep for like 8 years, and then you find out, there was another woman, and the other woman, she doesn't remember who she was either. She's asleep. They all the Citadel agents, they get put into deep sleep, and that's why I was like, this is literally my worst enemy, which, like I said, that show was fantastic. And I know you can like buy the episodes on Amazon Prime. If there's a way you guys can check that out. I thought Christian Slater was incredible on that show. And they had Alfred Woodard on it. It was a great cast. If I'm honest, I honestly think they should reboot that show and maybe put it on cable television or streaming platform and let it build, because that show really was, I think it was maybe 10 years ahead of its time. It was just, I think if you put that same show on a streaming platform now, I think it would have been a hit. But I've seen the cast members of My Own Worst Enemy talk about why that show didn't work at the time, because the fan, there are still fans of that show. There are people that are finding it on, there are places where they have the episodes loaded and all that kind of thing. And, they're still getting fans all these years later going, man, I watched that show and it was great. And I don't understand why NBC didn't pick it up or whatever. But I thought that show was great. But so when I saw Citadel, I was like, that plot was very familiar. I mean, they're not reinventing the wheel, because if you want to be technical, if you've seen Total Recall, that's the same plot in Total Recall. The guy's, he just seems like a regular guy, and he's got memories from when he was on vacation in Mars and the whole deal. And his memory, they're trying to get his memories back from his old life and blah, blah, blah. And, and you see a lot of similar aspects to that, like, oh, the woman you're married to is a spy. And again, they were kind of hinting that was a possibility on My Own Worst Enemy. You see Citadel and things happen on there, and you go, oh, wow, so she was this and all this. And obviously his former lover and partner and her, there's so many different things. I saw Rotten Tomatoes. The critic score on it, it's rotten. Normally on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics give it like these insanely high scores. Like you'll see a movie like Captain Marvel, which a lot of the fans hate, and the ratings from the fans give it a bad rating, but the critics were giving it like 89% or something. On Citadel, I saw it was at like 51%. It's rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, but the fan score, it was still low, but it's not rotten. I think it's 63% with the fans, which is still, that's not promising. It makes me wonder, because they did greenlight season 2. They did put out a press release. Joe Russo is going to direct the entirety of season 2. And apparently he's going to be paid $25 million to do so. So salute to Joe Russo. But yeah, he's going to get 20. But like I said, they already said that the show costs like $300 million. Now, when I watched the 6th and final episode of season 1, I kind of got an idea why the show may have cost $300 million, because they put a teaser trailer at the end of Citadel, and it was for a spinoff Citadel show called Citadel Diana, and this show looked like it had already been complete. So if you put those episodes combined with the 6 episodes of Citadel, and apparently there's another Citadel show, so there's going to be at least 3 Citadel shows. I don't know if they start shooting that one already, but like I said, the Diane show, they clearly had put a lot of Citadel Diana supposed to drop in 2024, so the 300 million makes sense. It's like they gave you 300 million, but you're making more than one show. Because I was like, they didn't spend $50 million per episode, but the show doesn't look cheap. I thought the show was shot well, and it's very derivative. It's and one thing it kind of throws me off is it seemed like they were doing like the older spy thing. There's a reason, like when you watch James Bond movies and stuff, James Bond's a playboy. He's a young up and coming guy. He's a ladies' man, all this kind of stuff. You don't want to see James Bond sitting there, and he's like in his 40s and he's got a wife and kids and he's worried about paying a mortgage. That's kind of boring. That's how you and I live. We're not spies. So James Bond can't be sitting around talking about, I think I got a dentist appointment on, you know what I'm saying? It's that kind of, you don't want to give your hero like boring, mundane tasks. What was it? The George Lazenby James Bond movie, Her Majesty's Secret Service. James Bond got married at the end of that movie. And then they Thanos snapped George Lazenby, and he never played James Bond again. Because that was like Sean Connery was wanting more money to keep playing Bond. They were making all kind of money off of him, and he was like, "No, y'all got to pay me." And they said, "No, this is James Bond. We don't need you." And they put George Lazenby in there in the movie. It did okay. It wasn't a bomb. Her Majesty's Secret Service, it wasn't a bomb, but it didn't do near as well as the Sean Connery James Bond's movies. And so once they got the box office receipts in, they were like, okay, so we do need to pay Sean Connery. And so they paid him, and he did a couple more Bond movies, and then Roger Moore took over and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, James Bond got married at the end of Her Majesty's Secret Service, and they never talked about it again. So that was the thing. And then you see, No Time to Die, which was the final Daniel Craig James Bond movie. He had gotten out of active service. He had gotten married. You find the whole thing out, and then you find out he's got a kid and the whole deal. And so, but that's his last movie, so it is, and obviously we're about to get a new young James Bond, and he won't be married, and he won't have kids. So I was kind of, that kind of thing, it's interesting to play with a different, instead of like, oh, he's young and sexy and he's a womanizer and ladies' man going all around the world and, international lover, that whole deal. But at the same point in time, when you're doing these spy thrillers and stuff, you kind of want to preserve the fantasy of it. But I liked Citadel. I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to. I thought I was just going to, because as soon as I heard Anthony and Joe Russo, I thought it was going to, the Russo brothers, I love their work. So I was like, oh yeah, I got to say, oh yeah. And then, but it was decent. I will check out season 2. I don't know how many of you guys, like I said, it didn't, and the Amazon executives have acknowledged that it hasn't performed as well as they hoped it would. But yeah, they're going to give it at least one more season. And we're also, like I said, we're getting Citadel Diana and some other Citadel show that I think is set in India or something like that. So, but they, like I said, they showed the little snippet from Citadel Diana, and it looked pretty good. I was interested. I want to see it. So, but if you guys watched Citadel and liked it or didn't like it, please get in the comments and let me know what you guys think. I'm out. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please check out my podcast at anchor.fm/Ikari Press, or just type in Ikari Press on your favorite streaming platform today.